So we're here again at the Toronto after party, so to speak, in Stephanie's room.
That's where everyone wants to be. I mean,
the day after the Toronto Bitcoin conference, and sitting down with us now, we have, of course, again, Andreas Antonopoulos and Stephanie Murphy.
Hello.
Hi.
And we are joined today by Peter Todd. He's the chief scientist of the Mastercoin Foundation and a myriad of other projects, too.
Yeah, chief scientist of Dark Wallet now, too.
Chief scientist of Dark Wallet, too, and you're a Bitcoin core developer.
People call me that, I guess.
Well, have you submitted changes to the core that have been included in shipping code?
I guess that means I am.
Well, I guess that means you are. We just had this conversation with Amir.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so on episode 99, we had a conversation. I had a conversation with Austin Hill and Adam Back talking about a proposal they're calling side chains, which is this idea that you can have alternative Bitcoin blockchains that don't have their own tokens on it, don't have their own Bitcoins on it, so they're not like an altcoin necessarily, but they can have other characteristics such as a shorter block time or larger block sizes, and so do some of the things that conventional altcoins have done. The difference is that you can then move a token from the Bitcoin blockchain at a 1-to-1 pegged ratio onto these other blockchains where it might be more useful to you at that particular point of time. This has been received by the Bitcoin community, broadly speaking, with kind of mixed response. And nobody really knows how to think of this, and people who are very supportive of altcoins are concerned that there's something going on here. You and I had an interesting conversation where you basically told me that we were completely wrong about this, and that actually this is a terrible thing. So can you kind of summarize? Did I do a good job of summarizing this in your eyes? Please correct me.
Maybe a little too harsh on terrible.
Okay.
But I will go say, I'll go start by saying I think the basic ideas behind it, basic push behind it, I think is decently well. You want to be able to give people options. You want to have more than just Bitcoin and completely separate systems. But where I don't like it is that there's this idea of using it with merge mining. And the thing with merge mining is it lets a consensus system like Bitcoin say that, okay, or actually I should say the better example is Namecoin. It says, okay, rather than a Namecoin block being valid because it is someone doing a bunch of useless work, the hashing power associated with it, we'll let them reuse the work of a different blockchain. Now, in some ways this sounds pretty good. I mean, we can go secure Bitcoin, we can secure Namecoin at the same time.
And Namecoin is one of the altchains that is merge mined more than self-mined or solo mined.
Absolutely. Now, can we talk about merge mining real quick? Can you just recap that for some listeners?
So Namecoin was your first example of it. Namecoin is a DNS alternative. It's supposed to be a decentralized domain name system, and it's not directly a financial system in itself. You can still buy and sell Namecoins, but they're really meant to register domain names. So the issue there is, well, how are you going to keep it secure? And initially, Namecoin was just a separate chain, just like Bitcoin is its own thing. But the people behind it came up with the idea of, well, why don't we go secure both at the same time? We'll use the same hashing power that keeps Bitcoin secure to also keep Namecoin secure, which basically means if I'm trying to mine Bitcoin blocks, I can, through this special protocol called merge mining, simultaneously mine Namecoin blocks at the same time.
But you get the reward in Bitcoin, which is your incentive, whereas if you were mining Namecoin, there would be no reward.
Actually, you get the reward in both chains.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's your incentive to go to the trouble of doing this in the first place.
So there's even an incentive for just straight-up Bitcoin miners to do merge mining instead, because then they get more coins.
Absolutely. Like right now, I think the number works out to be that Namecoin is roughly, say, 3/4 of the Bitcoin hashing power.
Mm-hmm.
So merged coin with Namecoin.
Yes. So 3/4 of Bitcoin hashing power is also mining Namecoin.
Wow. So that's very interesting because without merged mining, it would probably be a tiny, tiny fraction of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So isn't that net good for Namecoin?
Well, Namecoin happens to have 3/4 of the hashing power. For it can't be attacked.
Right. But what's the downside? Let me take it from a different perspective. You're a miner. You have a choice of either mining straight up Bitcoin or merge mining Bitcoin and Namecoin at the same time, or perhaps merge mining Bitcoin, Namecoin, and a bunch of other SHA-256.
Can you pick like that? Or if you do merge mining, are you mining like every coin that allows it?
The protocol most implementations merge mining use allows for an unlimited number of chains to be mined at once.
And you choose that as the miner. You pick how many chains and what chains. Do they all have to be the same proof of work algorithm?
Yes.
Right. So if you're doing SHA-256 mining, you can merge mine any altcoins that use SHA-256 as the proof of work.
Isn't it really all at the same
mining?
That use SHA-256 merge mining.
Yeah.
Okay, but then is there a disadvantage to doing merge mining across multiple coins versus doing straight up Bitcoin mining? Do you lose something in the competition for Bitcoin reward?
You don't. However, you do have to run a Namecoin full node. I know DevCoin full node. I think IXCoin is another example.
So for each of these that you add on as another a chain that you're merge mining, it actually does require additional infrastructure.
Yep, absolutely.
But mostly storage, which isn't too expensive to run. The actual mining difficulty, which chews up a lot of electricity, which is your main cost as a miner, that doesn't change?
For now, it is.
But what if you're part of a mining pool? That's pretty much irrelevant, right? Like I know
Absolutely.
there's a popular mining pool like CEX.io, which almost got like to a huge, scary percentage of the Bitcoin network at one point. That just does merge mining for you. It doesn't even ask.
Well, so here's the real question. Me personally, I have some Bitcoin mining equipment, not much, but I run it at home, and I go use P2 Pool to mine.
And can you describe P2 Pool? That's a completely decentralized peer-to-peer mining pool without a pool operator, right?
I think you just described it. And, of course, I had to go set up a full Bitcoin node to do that. Now, the Namecoin reward is pretty small, and I've never bothered setting up a Namecoin node. It's just, why would I do it?
So even though the mining part is literally zero difference to what you're already doing, the barrier to entry is having to bother to set up this full node.
Yeah.
And maintain it. Obviously, that has some costs. You can upgrade the software every time it gets a maintenance release and stay up to date. Otherwise, you might get hacked. All kinds of things like that.
It's overhead.
So then do you have like unclaimed block rewards from the Namecoin mining?
Well, it doesn't work like that, does it?
It's not unclaimed. It's more that I could have gone and did it at the same time, but since I didn't, there just is no reward that I can get.
So there's opportunity cost, if anything. You didn't take advantage of the opportunity to merge my Namecoin, so you're just mining Bitcoin.
So
but doesn't each block have a block reward? So like if let's say that you, just for purposes of discussion, that you were solo mining and you found a Namecoin block, but you you were doing the P2 pool and you didn't set up a Namecoin node, what would happen to the block reward?
Oh, well, that's it. If I don't set up this merge mining protocol, I do not find Namecoin blocks.
Because he's not mining Namecoin.
Yeah.
You have to set up a node.
Yeah. So it uses the same work
unless you set up the node.
Exactly, but you have to set up. So again, like when I was thinking about side chains, it sort of occurred to me that well, if this is something that can easily be merged mined, then you could have thousands of these. But it sounds like you're saying that in practice, that's not really something that's going to happen. Individual miners might pick a few, but there's actually a maintenance cost per side chain they have to mine.
Absolutely. So to put it in concrete numbers, last I checked, the Namecoin block reward in terms of value, it's about 2 or 3% that of the Bitcoin block reward. Now, if I'm a miner earning $100 a month on my little setup, I can justify the cost of setting up a Bitcoin node. That's not so bad. But can I justify the cost of also setting up a Namecoin node? No.
I'm assuming there's other overheads too. One of the things that is an overhead for miners or anyone running a full node is keeping the mempool and the unspent transaction pool, which is a load. So for those who don't understand what that is, that would require you to have RAM on your system, and RAM is obviously much more expensive than permanent storage. And so if you were running a full Namecoin node, you'd also have to have the memory pool, which means more RAM for that.
I mean, you know what it gets down to is, like, suppose it took me an hour to go set up Namecoin, and the only cost incurred was my time. I might go bill $100 an hour to a client, so let's say it's $100 cost. Well, that $100 cost over the next, say, 12 months, I'm going to earn something like, 12 times maybe $5 a month. I'm not going to make that back. I'm not even going to bother. Will I make it back on Bitcoin? Sure. Okay, now let's go do 1,000 side chains. Well, there's no incentive for me as a small miner to mine all these little chains.
But with any kind of mining, the value or the price of the coin is always a wild card, right? So, like, for instance, if you set up to mine Namecoin with merge mining, and then suddenly there's a rally in Namecoin a few months from now, and you've been holding the Namecoin, then it would be worth it. You just don't know that in advance.
Oh, sure.
Then
But
you're not
it
a
also
miner,
might
you're a
not-
speculator.
Yeah.
You might as well buy Namecoin in that case, and it might be faster if you were going to spend an hour of your time, earn $100 from your client, use 5 of those dollars to buy Namecoin, and you've got the same advantage.
Sure. Okay, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And the big issue is that, well, so if mining these sidechains does have a positive return, and say there are 1,000 of them, and they all earn, for me, with my amount of hashing power, $1 each, well, I still can't, for me as a small miner, justify installing all those sidechains. The net return is still not positive.
Yeah.
But if I mine at, say, BTC Guild with 25% of the whole hashing power, yeah, I'll go make a lot more money. So I'm going to go move to bigger pools so I can take this overhead cost, which is fixed, to mine it all, and spread it out a whole lot of people with hashing power.
Interesting. So in a mining pool, you only have to run one full node per pool, as opposed to for individual miners where they have all the same cost of being a pool, basically. That's very interesting.
Or a P2 pool, where it's like solo mining, only pooled. You still have to run the full node.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like an economy of scale.
Which then leads to centralization. Right. So
Yeah.
merge mining creates an impetus for centralization because you'd rather go to a pool that does all of the overhead for you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Okay, so what else about these things?
So how does this connect to sidechains and some of the other technologies that are being proposed?
Well, so the idea with sidechains is you have a separate blockchain that is somehow being kept secure, and you create a protocol by which you can go securely move value between one chain and another. And by securely, what I mean is, on the Bitcoin side of things, you go provide Bitcoin with a proof that some amount of hashing power claimed that transaction happened to go move value back. And the same way is the other way. Now, Bitcoin's quite secure, so moving value to the sidechain, from the sidechain's point of view, that's certainly secure. Although you do have the problem that when you're moving value back, it's not feasible to necessarily provide a full proof that in the entire history of this blockchain, these coins were moved around according to the rules and they eventually ended up being moved back to Bitcoin. What you'll actually do, and what's being proposed, is provide what's called a SPV proof, or a Merkle path. And
so this is simple payment verification.
Exactly.
Is the same protocol used for lightweight clients, so that instead of carrying the full node verification of every block back to the Genesis block, instead what you're doing is simply providing a path that shows sufficient confirmation within the other blockchain, the other sidechain.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And, explaining SPV a bit, it's important to remember that, I have an Android phone, I have an SPV wallet, and its only security is that it knows that the longest blockchain claimed that some coins were given to me. It does not check where the coins came from, it does no verification at all. It just assumes that whoever is mining the longest chain is honest.
Isn't that the assumption of the Bitcoin network?
No.
So,
if you run a full node, your node checks every single block. And if they try to lie to you, from your point of view, they're just not mining Bitcoin.
okay, so let's
This
talk
is the
about
difference. It's important to understand this. This is critical. This is the difference between height and depth in blockchain. So when you're running a full node, let's say we're currently mining block 290,000, right? Your node is checking the height of that blockchain, the block that's in there, and its transactions, and it's validating from that height of 290,000 blocks all the way down to the Genesis block, and linking the entire chain and making sure that every component of it is part of a valid transaction. When you're doing simple payment verification, you're looking at it from a different perspective. You're saying, how deep in the blockchain from the longest path is my block? So you're saying, right now, this is what we call confirmations. You're saying, well, since that thing was given to me in a transaction, 10 other blocks have been piled on top, and I'm relatively certain that 10 blocks of weight above it, or height above it, which is really how deep it is embedded in the longest chain, that gives me some level of certainty that all the miners who looked at this and layered 10 blocks above, that's the trust I have. So I have 10 blocks deep of trust instead of having 290,000 blocks high of trust. That's a very different proposal.
Okay, so if I am running a Satoshi client on my computer and I've downloaded the blockchain, am I running a full node even though I'm not mining?
Absolutely, you are.
Yes.
Okay, great, terrific.
So you essentially have 290,000 blocks worth of trust.
So this
in that chain.
This is a light client problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now that applies to the mining of sidechains.
And fewer people are running full nodes. Isn't that right?
Absolutely.
We've seen a precipitous decline, in fact, in the last 3 months. I don't mind, but I run a full node on a couple of cloud computers just to contribute to the verification of the network. But, that's the kind of thing that you would do as a volunteer, and very few people will do that.
It's important to note that when you say you're contributing to verification of the network, that's kind of a bit of a misnomer in many ways, because it's not like you finding that something is wrong actually automatically gets to the network.
No.
Your node just rejects that block and says, well, I don't know what the hell they're doing, but
Right. That's true. You need mining in order to do that.
Yeah. Now there are technologies maybe possible in the future where your node might, say, produce a compact machine-readable proof, but they don't exist yet. And also, they've got their own problems. Not least of all, what if some fraud goes unnoticed for a week? Someone produces a proof finally, and oh, shoot, now what do we do?
Yeah, you can't unroll everything that's happened in that week easily without disrupting a lot of other transactions that depend on it.
That's absolutely true.
Right, so what you're saying that when you move something from a side chain back into the main Bitcoin blockchain, the problem is that move requires a proof of hashing power to verify the transactions that happen in the side chain.
Yeah.
And there isn't the depth of hashing power in some of these side chains, and you're only providing a simple proof that's based on depth instead of height.
So here's a very concrete, pragmatic example. Let's suppose for a moment that someone decided to implement Zerocoin as a sidechain. So the way that would work is the Zerocoin protocol would be merge mined with some percentage of the hashing power. For sake of argument, we'll say 50%. So it is secure. But BTC Guild and maybe one other big pool gets hacked. And for the next 3 hours, they end up producing some invalid Zerocoin blocks. Well, the invalid Zerocoin blocks claim that all these Zerocoins were spent and moved back to the main Bitcoin chain. Well, all these Bitcoins that are just held in stasis, waiting for Bitcoins to be moved back from the sidechain, now they're released off into Bitcoin again. And when this gets noticed and the Zerocoin chain gets properly rewritten, well, there's no more Bitcoins, so they can't withdraw the money anyway. So that one event, a hack of just a few hours, has permanently destroyed all of the Bitcoins associated with the sidechain.
And so it's able to recover the Bitcoins even though it's invalid work.
Yes.
Because there's an incentive.
So sidechains expose you potentially to an attack on the weakest chain in the link of sidechains that is accepted in the Bitcoin, because if you can attack the smaller hashing power that's part of the merge mining for that sidechain, and then export the effects of that attack into the larger Bitcoin, you've essentially achieved an attack with a lot less hashing power than will be required to attack Bitcoin full on.
Well, to be clear now, this is an attack on Bitcoin. If you hold Bitcoins, your money isn't getting inflated, you're not losing any.
Oh no, but it's an attack on money transferred from the sidechain.
Well, so money goes to the sidechain, but it's held in stasis until there's a proof that the money should then come back from it. So it moves this chain where, say, Zerocoin transactions can happen, and then would go move back based on proof, SPV level proof, that the Zerocoin chain now says the money can move back.
And Bitcoin transactions are irreversible, so once it's been done, all you need to do is just even, so it might not even take hours. It would just take, as long as it takes to get under release, and then you're done.
I mean,
doesn't that introduce a problem with the fungibility of the coin, essentially creating two classes of Bitcoin? Bitcoin that's always been in the Bitcoin blockchain and only the Bitcoin blockchain, and Bitcoin that is of a somewhat lesser status because it spent some time in a sidechain and had a bit less proof on it, and therefore might be somewhat suspect.
Well, so the idea there is not that it's actually really spent time in the sidechain, but rather it served as a backing to the sidechain.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's like the gold in the vault
right.
that the banknotes are printed on.
So it never actually leaves
the problem
Bitcoin
is when
blockchain.
Germany asks for it back and you can't produce it because the sidechain transactions didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
So it was sitting in the vault, but then when Germany asked for it back in the main Bitcoin thing, you can't deliver it.
So here's a great real-world analogy. We'll go say the U.S. government and the German government, for once, they both now have vaults full of gold that are supposed to back their currency. Well, a bunch of gold gets moved to Germany, and a bunch of paper notes get created based on this. They move around the economy, and someone goes up to the German bank and says, "Hey, look, see these paper notes? I want my gold back." And the German bank follows the rules and gives them their gold back. Well, it turns out they were counterfeited. And if you own German notes, now your notes are no longer backed by gold because someone managed to go steal them based on a fake proof. Same thing with a sidechain system. Well, it may be backed by bitcoins, but when it's attacked, it's no longer backed.
Right.
So this is an edge case, obviously, which occurs in particular scenarios. It's not the general case.
Yeah.
How do you protect against those kinds of edge cases? How can you make it more robust as a
So
system?
the proposal has been that, from the sidechains community, has been that we go have a quieting period where we go spend, say, a day accumulating minor proof that this was the true chain and this is really agreement. But
Well, that's not unprecedented. That's similar to what happens with mining rewards, which have a 100-block quiet period where they can't be spent.
Or another example, if you try to go deposit feather coins at an exchange, they're not going to give you any bitcoins for a good day. But
Why is that?
Well, feather coins being 51% attacked.
Frequently.
Yeah, frequently.
I see.
Yeah. Same thing with Terracoin. There was that time warp thing. So if you deposit feather coins at an exchange, they're not going to give you bitcoins because feather coin has been 51% attacked.
And because so in the past, this is proven to be something where you shouldn't allow withdrawals quickly because it's proven to be a danger. So it seems like this is much the same here.
Although it can be even worse than that because the protocol is just a dumb protocol. It sees proof of work and it moves coins around. Well, what if I go decide, all right, I'm going to go use my pool to go and attack Zero Coin because I think anonymity is bad. And I go up to ghash.io or something and I throw them some money and say, all right, would mind just going and mining this side chain, but don't publish the blocks you find. Well, if I can go get a majority of hashing power there, I can go mine in secret. And I can go back to the Bitcoin chain and say, hey, look, give me these coins. And the Bitcoin chain will potentially respond and give me these coins. And now you have two chains and there's no good programmable way to respond there.
So hang on a second. So this would be an example of similar to the selfish mining paper we saw a while back, where you're mining but hiding those blocks. In the case of the selfish mining paper, you were publishing them on the main blockchain. But what you're saying here is you publish the proof on the sidechain where you're moving the coins, but you don't publish it on the sidechain you were originally mining. So you create a discrepancy in the records in the ledger.
Yeah. Or I could do it the other way around, which is to go and give the Bitcoin blockchain the proofs that some mining was done, but never actually publish the blocks themselves. So I've essentially proven to the Bitcoin chain that blocks should be taken out. And meanwhile, other people are trying to mine along but not seeing any proof. And you can try to further hand wave around saying, all right, we'll make reorganization proofs to go prove there were two chains at once. Well, and I can also go destroy the chain by deliberately mining a reorganization at the same time. Like, this just keeps on going. And yeah, you can go come up with a lot of solutions, but there's a lot of fragility here, a lot of complexity. And fundamentally, none of these solutions really work unless you have a majority of hashing power. But we've already said, if you have a majority of hashing power, we've made pools more centralized.
Huh.
Yeah, this is really good to point out.
Okay.
EasyDNS is the Swiss Army knife for your domain names, helping meet their customers' individual needs since 1998. EasyDNS has been an outspoken critic of SOPA and CISPA. EasyDNS was an early supporter of Bitcoin, and now they are proud to sponsor this show. Do business with a company that shares your values. Get a 13% discount when you pay with Bitcoin. Go to bitcoin.easydns.com and be sure to use discount code LTB.